It's a trap!
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release ball of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Hello there.
That's Aaron.
Hey, it's me.
And we're all here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, we got Aaron back in the chair.
Yay. Is this a little level down from our last guest? Or
Yeah, we're...
No offense, Aaron.
I'm just bantha fodder.
We're excited to have him back. He's decided to do a couple more shows with us this year and just kind of keep going forward. So that's very cool. So good to have you, man.
Glad to be back. Yeah. Bring the numbers up, you know.
Let me tell you, he is single-handedly responsible for the largest download in Grumpy Nostalgia history. So thank you very much, Aaron.
It had nothing to do with the movie. It was all me.
Yeah, that's what we thought.
You're
That's
welcome.
what we were talking about. So we're going after a big one this time, guys. Believe it or not, it is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. Have I heard of that one?
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's part of this small little circle of films, something about Star Wars or something like that. But
Roger.
Mike,
Yeah.
okay, Mike. Remember?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The kids seem to like it.
It's confused with Return of the Ninja.
Yeah. Obviously this is an iconic film and we're all very, part of our seminal moments in our childhood. So we're obviously very excited to talk about it. And it's always been my opinion. This one doesn't get much love. I don't think it's been appreciated as well as it should have been.
Was it the bad taste the Ewoks leave in people's mouths?
Well, yeah, that's part of it, Mike.
Okay.
All right, so let's just jump right in, guys, if you're ready. All right, so this was released on May 25th, 1983, with a $33 million budget, which back in the day, that's pretty big. It was directed by Richard Marquand, a relatively unknown director at the time. It was written by Lawrence Kasdan. He wrote this concurrently with The Big Chill, boys.
Same year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Featuring the non-credited yet dead
Only I wish.
Kevin Costner.
His acting is dead, but
Yeah. And it also co-written by George Lucas. But George Lucas had a little bit bigger role to play as we'll kind of flesh out. Mike, we all know most of the cast, but you kind of want to walk us through who the principal players were for this final installment of the trilogy?
Sure. You got your usual cast from the first two. You got Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill back, and everyone knows Mark Hamill from was it American? What was the car movie?
Corvette Summer.
Corvette Summer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the classics.
Yes.
And then Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, who I want to give a special shout out. Now that you just mentioned Kevin Costner, you got me thinking. He had just been in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but you watch this movie, Return of the Jedi, and you don't feel that character. You would think some of that would kind of leak in, or he would be the same guy he was in Raiders, but he was so, I guess, entrenched as Han Solo after the first two movies that you don't even think about it in this one. And I didn't think about it,
Yeah.
And it's a different character, I was thinking every Kevin Costner movie I see, he's the same guy. He's dead. And in this one, like I said, I got to give Harrison Ford a shout out for that, because that is I was really impressed watching this, and
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Mike, because even with you just mentioning it, I just realized that you never think that Han Solo is Indiana Jones, or vice versa, or Rick Deckard, or any other iconic play.
And even though
great point.
even though Blade Runner was kind of a stinkeroo, Raiders of the Lost Ark was huge, and you would think that would bleed into this, but I didn't see it. Now you're going to have to help me out on some of these characters, because I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid in the theater, but I knew there was Kenny Baker was in it, and Mayhew is Chewbacca, right? He's
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you have good old Anthony Daniels, the prissy C-3PO, and was this Admiral Akbar's first appearance, or was he in Return? Was he in Empire?
No, this was his first appearance.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a trap. Yeah.
It is a trap.
It was great.
That's right.
And then
Classic line.
Alec Guinness, who I thought had died before 1983, but I guess I'm wrong. He must. It must. I didn't know if it was one of those things where he shoehorned him in, kind of like.
Well, he was a Jedi. He's a
Hayden
Jedi,
Christensen.
Mike. So he just came back. So.
I know, but Hayden Christensen in there kind of off-putting, and they had Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor on the credits. But wait, I'm confused. Was he really that young in this movie? Because
yeah, he's actually 6 years older than Mark Hamill.
Holy crap! Okay, see, there you go. I had no clue he was the original Emperor. I thought he just they found a guy and just used the same kind of makeup.
He fit the suit.
Yeah.
Young fool. Only now, at the end, do you understand?
But Mustaine, somehow he returned also.
Yeah.
The standouts in the cast for me were Warwick Davis as the Wicket leader of our Ewoks, and Tony Cox, who I saw his name appear as one of the Wookiees. I was like, whoa, our Ewoks. I was like, that guy. I remember him from Bad Santa. And I thought that name stuck out to me. And I'm sure there were some other vertically challenged people in this movie that were, stars.
Well, Mike, you served it up on a platter for me. So I'm just going to jump in here. I want to take special moment to recognize the work of Debbie Lee Carrington.
Wait. Was she in a movie we already saw?
Yep.
Total Recall.
Yeah, very good. She played Thumbelina, the murderous little person prostitute.
Thank you. Yeah,
my favorite type of little person, by the way.
Yes. Okay. Because I was trying to think about
the description is just so great. Murderous little person prostitute.
Prostitute. Yes. And,
all true.
So that's I can't forget Frank Oz as Yoda. His iconic voice for that.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Good. Okay, well, cool. Some other notes on that cast, boys. There's a couple interesting things about the making of this movie. We talked a few times in the past about David Lynch being given the role or offered the director role, who he turned it down. Aaron, they also gave it to David Cronenberg.
That would have been a very interesting.
It might have turned out a little
Jedi.
different, I think. Yeah. Here's my favorite. Lucas, as it turns out, as we found out later with Phantom Menace and the second part of the trilogy, he's not really a big fan of directing, and he pleaded with a lot of his friends to direct this movie. We kind of already made note of the biggest ones, but he also pleaded with Steven Spielberg to direct this movie, but he wasn't able to because Lucas had kind of dropped out of the Directors Guild, and this is more or less an independent movie, and with Spielberg being a member of the Directors Guild was not allowed to do it, so he was a little bit rogue there. Spielberg suggested that Paul Verhoeven direct the movie to Lucas. Then Lucas saw some of his work and decided, you know what, I'll find somebody else.
Next.
Yeah. So, Mike, you mentioned actor Ian McDiarmid, who played the Emperor. He was actually originally hired just to play, the body, kind of like David Prowse was for Vader. His voice was not originally meant to be on screen, but he impressed enough people with his low, guttural, now iconic dialect, so to speak. But he was just there for the acting part, not the speaking.
Awesome. Yeah, I had no idea after watching the sequels just recently that he'd been in the originals. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So they ended up going with Richard Marquand, and that was probably a good idea. He had gone on later to do Jagged Edge and a really, really wonderful movie. Aaron, I think you might know this one, Hearts of Fire with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, boy.
That's not
been a moment.
Not good.
No.
Yeah, but he was kind of moldable and kind of new and could really be kind of worked over. And the first screening that they had for this was a complete disaster. Lucas flipped out. He was completely unimpressed that it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. Hated the editing. So legend is that Lucas did most of the directing here, just kind of overstepped Richard Marquand on several. He did a lot of second unit directing, but at the end of the day, he probably directed most of this movie. What I found interesting here is they conferred with a child psychologist when they were introducing the element of, in the previous movie, the big reveal that Vader was Luke's father, and there was always a little bit of ambiguity behind that. And they felt that younger kids wouldn't be able to process that information unless it was made real. That's why they've added the scene when Yoda actually confirms that it was. So they felt that scene was there to help little kids process that, as opposed to it being.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems like a little too much extra to do there, but whatever. Aaron, you mentioned the phrase, "It's a trap."
It's a trap!
Uttered by our friend Akbar. The original line there was, "It's a trick."
Wow.
And
Frick.
test audience hated that just as much as everybody else did, so they actually changed that over to "It's a trap."
Was a quick question? Was I know we just recently saw the original Star Wars, New Hope, and they had added footage, and I guess Lucas had gone there and digitized in some new animals and Tatooine or whatever,
Yeah.
With this version, I guess mine was 2 hours 6 minutes. Did it have any additional footage that had been added since the theatrical release?
Yeah, Aaron, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it certainly did. This is I had this down for my my grumpy parts of the program.
I don't want to jump ahead if you got some.
Yeah, we can save it for
Okay.
for later.
So,
but
all right.
Okay, so
All right.
I guess
It'll come up again.
Short answer is this had additional footage that the theatrical one did not have.
A
Yes.
lot. Yeah.
Okay,
And
interesting.
the phrase redundant and useless kind of comes to mind.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Maybe it's crap. It should
Yeah.
be.
Oh, wow.
It's a crap. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So you have a bad feeling about this.
Worm-ridden filth.
Yeah, Aaron, you just get invited for the quotable movies, I guess. Yeah. The standout player here in this film is Jabba the Hutt, of course. He cost $500,000 to make as a puppet.
Wow.
Much more convincing as a puppet than a CGI later
Yeah.
CGI down the road. And he weighed 2,000 pounds, Mike. So
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
What was he made out of to be that heavy?
sex appeal.
Ah, yes.
Let's be honest. He is the. We'll get
2,000 pounds of
sex appeal. Yeah, we'll get to Jabba later. The hell with Leia's bikini. I'm going with Jabba. The word Ewok is never mentioned in the film. And what interesting to me, we've known what these things are for 40 years. But if you were to watch the movie, you would never know it. The film does not refer to them as Ewoks. But
that's what aggravated me as a little kid, even with the first movie, was you would see all these Kenner figures come out and they would have these names attached to them. You're like, wait, that was his name or that was its name? It's like, what? How did they come up with that? Someone like Kit Fisto. I don't know if that was ever mentioned in the prequel movies at all, but all of a sudden you see a Kit Fisto figure.
That's why you buy the toys.
I know. It's just
yeah.
And I'm sure, Mike, you have some words on that later.
Ewoks.
You got 3 seconds of screen time. You get an action figure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, who were they? There were 2 purple guys that were seen briefly with the Emperor, and they
they had action figures.
I bet they did. I was going to say they literally had 3 seconks, like you say, of screen time.
I can step into the next room and grab one.
Really? Don't do that. They look like old guys. You could see it like the Masons or something, or the Knights of Columbus or something.
Yeah. That's what, they had their little hands in their sleeves.
Really old bouncers for Prince.
Yeah, that's a good one. John Williams' son, Joe, who we all know is the frontman for the band Toto, he wrote the Ewok song, which was replaced by a new song at the end here. But the original Ewok song, the celebration at the end, that was written by our friend Joe Williams.
Wow.
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that.
No one has so much percussion to it. I was like, it's got to be Toto.
Yeah. So we're, this was way back when, guys, but I still remember like it was yesterday. So some other things that I did not remember like it was yesterday was pop culture climate of 1983. So let's go through a few of those things right now. So in the theaters, we had a couple weeks earlier, we had some really cerebral movies. Dr. Detroit and Still Smoking, Cheech and Chong Still Smoking were in the theaters concurrently to this. The week before, the movie Blue Thunder with show favorite Roy Scheider. We talked about him.
Yes.
Great movie there.
Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah. The week after this came out, we had Trading Places, War Games, and the best superhero movie of all time, Superman 3 with Richard Pryor.
I'm going for 4. Quest for Peace. Come on.
We always got to talk about Nuclear Man every time.
Nuclear Man, yeah.
On the old Pop 40, we had Beat It by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, yeah. That's
that guy.
Yeah, Every Breath You Take. Again, this time with no Diddy, the real song. We talked about this song in the last 3 episodes, but it's always... I personally think this song's better without all the talking over it, but that's my opinion.
I'm with you.
Have you heard Freddie Fender's version of I'll Be Watching You?
I have
Every
not.
Breath You Take. Really?
Yeah,
okay. Check it out.
I heard
It was a live performance in Sweden, and you ought to catch it on YouTube, just so you know.
I saw Little Richard one time, and he did it too. So it was very strange.
Wow. Music nerds, deep cuts all the way.
Cuts.
It's keeping with our Toto theme. The song "Africa" was also a big hit around this time. Dexy's Midnight Runners with "Come On Eileen."
Poor old Johnny Ray.
Poor old Johnny Ray. Yeah. So I want to talk about something more fun with music. Let's talk about metal. Let's talk about early '80s metal.
Yes.
And
Quiet Riot.
On the metal charts, very good, Mike. We had "Metal Health" by Quiet Riot. We had one of my favorites, "Holy Diver" by Dio.
Oh,
yes.
Ronnie James, R.I.P. R.I.P. Dio. And this was the premiere of, I think it was "Kill 'Em All" by Metallica. The Dave Mustaine, the newly Dave Mustaine-less Metallica.
Stainless.
Wonderful little Dave Mustaine, little pleasant chap, went on to produce his own band called Megadeth, who we're all totally in love with still to this day. On the alternative charts, we had "War" by U2, which is a pretty good album. I think we had the self-titled debut from the Violent Femmes, which is one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yes.
And the band REM released "Murmur" around the spring of '83. So none of these songs we mentioned in the last 5 minutes were ever on the radio, but they should have been. But people of our generation will remember these much more than they will Toto. So, yeah,
Hey.
Yeah. And
hold the line.
All right. And to wrap it up on the old television, we were watching the A-Team, and we talked about Mr. T last time Aaron was here, so I felt it appropriate to bring back Clubber Lang.
B.A. Baracus.
Yeah. Right. And then we had the "And" series. We had Kate and Allie, Cagney and Lacey, and Simon and Simon. That's what we were watching on the television, 1983.
Well,
somebody was.
Some of us.
Some of us were. Yeah, not us. Yeah. So we were outside doing things. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
Just to wrap up the pop culture thing here, MTV was on the brink of folding. They were financially in trouble, no ratings, no viewers. Mick Jagger agreed to say, "I want my MTV," and that ad campaign kind of saved the network, guys. So thanks to that, we were able to see, Teen Mom and Jersey Shore and The Hills. And none of that could have been possible without.
Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Mick.
Just think of the world that was saved.
Yeah.
And the computer mouse was invented in 1983. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's how far back we were, guys. Given that climate, it's pretty understandable why we were excited to go see a movie. Other than that, guys, I think we pretty much covered the landscape. If you want to, we'll just kind of jump in and grab our tickets and get in the theater and talk about, in hindsight, it was probably one of the better, in my opinion, Star Wars movies, especially since, the later releases, comparatively speaking. It's probably hold its own. But you guys ready to go?
Let me catch the end of this Kate and Allie episode.
Yeah, program your VCR to tape Cagney and Lacey for me, will you?
Sure.
All right, Mike, if you're ready, hit the button. So previously on Star Wars, as you recall in The Empire Strikes Back, the gang kind of gets split up, and Han Solo gets frozen in carbonite and gets taken by a bounty hunter, Boba Fett. Bobby Fett. I like that. Let's go with Bobby Fett.
Sounds like a Sopranos character.
Yeah.
Bobby Fett.
Yeah, but they all kind of split up. So this kind of picks up where the story left off about a year later, I think, in the chronology. So you get that big fanfare. The 20th Century Fox logo comes up. It's still which is the greatest way to start a movie, in my opinion. And then you get the "Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away," and then you get that epic scroll, which I've always been a big fan of. This is so iconic and so, tied to this franchise that no one else could ever do this now.
No.
That it is only a Star Wars thing. This is pretty common with other films prior to this, and old, serials and cliffhangers from the 30s and 40s did this quite often. You can't do that anymore. It's pretty much attached to Star Wars now. Remember, Mike, when we went to Dragon Con, do you remember seeing that girl that had the dress, which was composed of the entire scroll?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
just awesome. Got a picture of that. Yeah. Very clever. So it ends up with Darth Vader does a drive-by. He stops in, and on the they're building a Death Star 2, Electric Boogaloo. Vader kind of shows up to check on the progress of it. He's not very impressed with it, and he kind of tells everybody that they better get their act together because the Emperor's coming to oversee the final stages of completion. And it's kind of cool, Aaron. It's just this like half-built Death Star. It's looks kind of low rent, not very threatening. Yeah.
Got this jerk showing up to tell you you're not doing your pulling your weight.
Yeah, just like real life, right? So there's always a deadline. So meanwhile, back on Tatooine, our two droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, are going through the desert, and they're making their way to Jabba's palace. But they've got a message they need to deliver, and they finally get in front of Jabba, who's they call him a Hutt, and he's essentially just a big worm. But Jabba's really cool. So Jabba, he's a big music fan. He's a party guy.
Yes, it's always 3:00 at Jabba's.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Endless rave.
Yeah, he's always got a music. He always got a band. He's always hitting the hookah. He's got a lot of beer. He's always got his friends. He's kind of like the Dave Matthews Band fan. He's just a party. Like if Jabba were alive today, he'd have.
Oh yeah, he'd be a parrot head.
Yeah. But Jabba's cool. Let's be honest. So he kind of reveals that he doesn't want to bargain, and he's got Han Solo in carbonite as a kind of an art piece early on his wall, just kind of showcasing it. So he's pretty happy about that. The droids play a little message from Luke, who claims to be a Jedi Knight now, and decide, unbeknownst to them, he offers the droids up as a gift, which catches Mike, as you said, the very prissy C-3PO with complete surprise.
Playing the wrong message.
Yeah, so Jabba says no thanks, and he just takes them anyway. So there you go. So as they're carted off, we see in disguise, incognito, Lando Calrissian, played by Billy Dee Williams, is in the hall, kind of overseeing things. And what I thought here, I don't think you guys caught it, but in his first scene, he bumps his head. Do you see that?
I didn't catch that.
He's wearing a helmet to disguise himself, and as he walks in the camera and lowers the mask to show his face, the audience,
Nice.
He bumps his head, which I thought was funny. So then, I think Aaron will probably get to this later. In the original scene, they had a small little musical number here, with the original kind of funky, groovy song, which they've completely replaced with the big band thing. Not the place for a big musical number, I don't think. But
you can hear my pain.
What about the dancing? Were the dancing girls in the original?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very brief.
In fact, in pickups, I don't know if this is in Aaron's scope or not, but in pickup, the young dancer Ula, the younger one, not the larger gal, but she was called back 35 years later for the special edition to do reshoots. And she was in such good shape. She's a professional dancer. She was able to do pickups and reshoot some of her scenes as her original character, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
amazing.
But so they have a big party, and there's later that night a bounty hunter kind of sneaks in called Bosch. Yeah, and this bounty hunter has shackled Chewbacca, so he's kind of turned him in, and they do a little negotiation, and he threatens to kill everybody if he doesn't get his right price. And Jabba appreciates that and pays him off and invites him to stay to party again.
My kind of scum.
My kind of scum. You guys are all my kind of scum. So later that night, that bounty hunter kind of sneaks down and defrosts Solo. And
the access is pretty easy to.
She hit the down button and the defrost button.
Yeah, she's none too quiet about it either.
Yeah. So they had this little moment, and the reveal here, the voice is interesting. That voice was articulated by Pat Welsh, who's the actress that did the voice of E.T. In case you guys are curious.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But in yet another reveal, bounty hunter lists the master reveal that she is in fact Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, and she
was very small for a bounty hunter.
She was very small, yeah. But she's a woman now, which is somehow hotter in a weird sort of way. But she's exposed. Everybody wakes up, and they all find out that they've been watching her the whole time, and they get caught, and they all get put in the pokey. And yeah, so there you go. So the next morning, Luke finally shows up, and he's dressed in black, just like Johnny Cash, looking pretty cool. And he goes back to finally negotiate the release of Solo. And conveniently, I love how Star Wars uses the mind trick for complete plot convenience. This mind trick should probably get them anything they need. It always ends up that what they really need, that character is immune to mind tricks, as is the case with Jabba here.
Yeah.
So as they're negotiating, Luke force pulls a blaster to try to shoot him, apparently, rather than just lightsaber everybody in half and just get out. But He ends up stepping out on a trap door, falling down to this pit in the antechamber below, and that's we have this giant monster fight, which is pretty cool. It's called the Rancor.
That's what I thought was notable was the fact that he wasn't able to use the Force during the battle with the Rancor, and it kind of showed that like he was so emotional or so stressed out about it that he could not use the Force, and he had to actually just use a physical rock to throw it, at the
I had the same question.
That was pretty clever, that he wasn't controlled enough to use the Force.
That's an interesting take on it. I like that.
Yeah.
So he ends up through a series of clever maneuvers, including sticking the bone in the Sarlacc's mouth. He lures him to the back of the chamber and throws a rock at the door, and the door kind of collapses on top of the Rancor and kills it, which is essentially Jabba's pet. And this gets everybody upset. And he's outraged by this, so he sentences the whole crew to death. So that morning they load up the sail barge, which to me
party barge.
The party barge. Come on, Aaron, you know what I'm talking about.
He's got a girl in a bikini. He's got drinks.
It should have had a VW logo and a bunch of tie dye on it. It's just this traveling party barge. So they go out to this pit called where the Sarlacc lives, which is this creature that lives in the sand, and they make them walk the plank, and then you get this great, amazing set piece where R2-D2 is smuggled in a lightsaber, and he kind of shoots it in the air, and Luke as he kind of plummets off the plank, grabs the lightsaber, starts spinning around, hacking people to death, and this is really a great scene.
There's some great Wilhelm screams too.
There's a lot of Wilhelm screams here too, guys. Visually appealing as well as we get introduced to the iconic bikini worn by Leia, Princess Leia here, who's been forced to be the concubine of, again, more points for Jabba here. There's a little bit here with Boba Fett, who would go on to play a bigger role in the universe later, but he very clumsily gets his jetpack activated, and he smashes into a wall and falls into this Sarlacc pit. But ultimately, during the chaos, Leia grabs the chain and kind of chokes out Jabba, Luca Brasi style. Kills him. They rescue the droids. They rescue Han and Luke, and they kind of jet off. And the saddest part for me is the band and everybody on the party barge dies.
I guess so.
You go out, you try to have a party out. Their version of Burning Man, I guess.
Their ultimate price.
In the new or Disney Plus series Boba Fett thing, and do the anybody else that got swallowed by the Sarlacc, did they return, or is it just Boba Fett?
No? Only the main characters don't die in Star Wars. Okay. Everybody else dies. Yeah.
Doesn't the guy with the little curly thing on his head, who's like Jabba's right hand man, Bib Fortuna or something?
Fortuna, yeah.
Doesn't he show up later?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he doesn't blow up in the party barge. He just kind of maybe escapes off screen. Maybe. Okay.
Mike, you're answering those questions that.
And the blue guy that plays a keyboard, I think he returns too.
Max Rebo, right?
Max Rebo.
Whatever. Sell your figures. Come on.
You know what? I think it's either the Book of Boba Fett or the Mandalorian. I think that whole band shows up again later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Again,
these are like names from Dune. Some of these Star Wars names, man.
Dune wishes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 40 minutes, guys, and that's just the opening prologue to the movie.
A strong 40 minutes.
Yeah, the trail barge blows up real good, and then the gang kind of splits up. Luke has to go back to Dagobah to talk to Yoda, and the other team has to go back to the Rebel Alliance where there's a rendezvous to talk about the next phases of the battle. So Luke kind of goes back to see Yoda on his little swamp hut, and Yoda's 8. He's hit the wall. He's an old dude now. He's 900 years old. And
when 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
The scene's really kind of. We talked about the Vader reveal about him being his father, and this is kind of the last little bit to kind of flush that out. And it's confirmed that Yoda doesn't want to talk about it, but he ultimately does and says, he's your father, and he's upset that he told him and all that kind of thing. And so, Luke, to this point, Luke's been kind of whiny, let's be honest. And he's asked a lot of questions. It gets to the point where he's asked so many questions that Yoda just finally gives up and dies. Enough with the Skywalker already.
That annoying.
Yeah, so he ends up passing away, but in his dying breath, he mentions that there is another Skywalker, and that's again yet another reveal in this movie. So as he's made his peace with Yoda, he kind of leaves the cabin, goes back out to his ship, and that's where the heavily toupeed spirit Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up again.
Sean Connery's toupee.
Yeah.
Was a bard.
So he comes back out and kind of reaffirms the whole plot line about Vader's turn and his fall from grace and where he is now, and he actually mentioned the word Anakin Skywalker, which has never been mentioned in the original trilogy, but gives Luke some context to what's happening. And the ultimate thing here is that Luke, in order to become a Jedi, he's got to kind of confront Vader and do that. So the groundwork for Daddy issues has already been laid here. So he goes back to the rendezvous with the Rebel Alliance leaders, and they're all meeting about their next plans. And the senator named Mon Mothma, which is the redhead lady, she's kind of giving this speech about they've learned through espionage and things like that the Emperor is going to be on site for the Death Star 2, and they've got plans. Of course, there's always plans. There's always a shield that needs to be blown up. So
yes.
So they kind of, the premise is that they're going to need a team to go down to this forest moon called Endor, and where the shield is, and they can take out the shield. They can do just a repeat of the first Star Wars, where they just go in and blow a thing up. So you think and
a little note, I don't think she had an action figure. Surprise!
Oh my gosh!
Wow,
the one person.
Wow,
I noticed that when I was watching it.
Yeah, she actually had lines. She had speakable lines in the movie. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's it. So that's it. It's game on. We've got they set up the premise here. So there's going to be a dogfight in space, and that the space battle is going to be led by Lando Calrissian. Solo gives up the Falcon to Lando, and they go their way. And Solo and his team are going to go down to Endor and deactivate the shield, which is just blow something up. So they head down to this forest moon, and they land there in about 5 seconds. Solo kind of blows their cover, gets caught by a couple stormtroopers, which leads to another iconic scene where the Endor forest speeder chase scene, which I always thought was a really cool. It shows its age a little bit with the stop motion and the green screen part of that. I think a CGI version that Aaron was probably a lot cooler, don't you think?
Yeah, it worked better but still.
But
it doesn't stand out as much as some other things we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll get there too. But the camera work and the speed and the sound effects, I mean, it still sells the scene pretty well. So in that chase, Princess Leia gets separated, and she meets this little team of the second act of the movie is just really just Build-A-Bear Workshop, right? So they get this indigenous species called the Ewok. Which is essentially just little teddy bears that are just they form a little bit of an alliance there, but as they're
I always thought they were like less sleazy Jawas,
Yeah, I was reading that in the original script these were supposed to be Wookiees, and I think it was like a budget thing where they kind of, and I think Ewok is a derivation of the word Wookiee. But yeah, so
clever, Lucas.
Clever. See how we did there. So the Ewoks kind of take them captive, and then they see C-3PO and they confuse him for one of their gods, and then Luke does a little hocus pocus with the Force to make him seem godly, and they scare them into accepting them into the tribe, and they form an alliance, and they agree to help to take out the Empire. So, and then it just kind of accelerates. There's actually 3 concurrent storylines that kind of wrap up the film. One is the Ewoks and the Rebels kind of performing this kind of guerrilla warfare on the Forest Moon to blow up the shield generator. There's the scene in space. There's amazing special effects here, even for 1983. The amount of visual effects shots, this space battle are really, I think, probably one of the best in Star Wars. Once that shield is down, they kind of go through and kind of enter the Death Star and kind of blow it up. Concurrently, there's this battle for Vader's soul, Vader's redemption, which is, of course, the highlight of the movie and kind of the ultimate kind of closure for the trilogy, where the Emperor is using Vader as leverage to recruit Luke. He's trying to bring Luke to the dark side, and he teases him most of the movie. He mocks him, he condescends to him. He's a great villain. There's several saber fights with Luke and Vader here. I guess what triggers everything is we learned earlier that there was a reveal on Endor that Luke and Leia are brother and sister. That was the other Skywalker that Yoda's referring to. And Vader says, "Oh no, if I can't get you, I'll get your sister." And that just triggers beast mode for Luke. And he just really goes off the shelf and kind of cuts his hand off. And then he sees like both of their hands have been cut off. And they see that parallel there. And finally at the end, Luke's not going to give, and Vader can't turn him. And Emperor's said, "Well, you know what? Fine, you'll die." And he starts to taser him to death. And meanwhile, Vader's sitting back, and the score here, Aaron, the swelling musical arrangements in the score here, even if you didn't know English, you knew something big was happening here. That the musical score is telling you that 3 movies worth of tension is coming to an end here. And ultimately, Vader kind of gets his redemption, and he turns on the Emperor. And in the middle of getting his son shocked to death by the Emperor, he picks up the Emperor and throws him off
somehow Palpatine returned.
Mike, don't get me started. I put that to bed from the last time. But it's implied, of course, that the Emperor has been killed. And then if you have a father, this scene really kind of gets to you. He ultimately has this moment where he sees Vader for what he is. And he takes his helmet off, and they have their first conversation as father and son. And of course, he quickly dies. But it's a really kind of bittersweet ending to this trilogy. But it's the redemption of Vader, which is kind of what the whole thing was supposed to be out in the first place. But Luke kind of gets him off the Death Star at the end, and before it blows up, and the funeral pyre at the end of the movie where he's burning Vader. Again, the soundtrack is it's amazing. Yeah. And again, this movie probably doesn't get as much as it deserves. We'll get to this when we kind of do our review, but this felt like an ending, which is what I really appreciated. This. It was over, and they tacked on this scene, I think, Aaron, where they went through the galaxy and showed some of the other.
Oh, that's added on with all those like Coruscant and all those places celebrating.
Yeah, okay. They threw in a little there for you too, Mike. If you heard that, we free.
No, I missed that. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I brought it up. But at the end, there's this big celebration at the end where they're doing the bonfire in the Ewok village, and the music is playing and swelling, and they all are reunited, and you get that
fireworks.
And that amazing.
The stormtroopers' heads were used as drums,
as bongos, stormtrooper bongos.
It's a good point you bring up, because for the Ewoks being such little teddy bears, they cut off the heads of stormtroopers, maybe. And they tried to roast. Han Solo for
that was dinner.
Cannibals.
It's like they were hardcore.
Hardcore Ewoks.
Yes.
Yep. Call me a teddy bear.
I guess the opposite of hardcore would be the stormtroopers here yet again. So why do the stormtroopers wear the armor? Because
they repel for nothing.
They repel
stick. Yeah, arrow, maybe a wooden, wooden arrow for a stone tip.
Stone arrows and rocks.
Yeah, my goodness.
I would just say, they're probably just too hot. Take them off. They don't do anything anyway. They're certainly not.
It's all for a look. Yeah.
Maybe the thigh pads, help them drain their fluids.
process their urine. Process their urine and feces.
Yes.
Oh, Mike, quit talking
now
about
we know.
Urine and feces are processed in the thigh pads.
Quit talking about Dune. I'm tired of talking
Sorry about
Dune.
that.
All right, but the aspect ratio here, the 2.39 to 1, that end scene where you see everybody in the movie in one shot, is just really cool. And I thought that aspect ratio really played out well too, especially for other scenes like that ultra wide screen where you can see all the characters in the background of like Jabba's palace, and you see all the weird little detail that was put into every scene here. I just again, that's a technical thing that's too nerdy for most people, so we'll move on. But that widescreen film ratio really sells this movie more than any. So, but that was kind of the end of the movie. So let's go to awards and accolades real quick, and then we'll kind of get to our assessment of it. So this had a $23 million opening. So at the time, it was the first movie to ever gross more than $20 million at a weekend. So that was a big deal. Ended up doing $316 million domestically. Again, these are 1983 numbers, guys. And then $475 million worldwide. So adjusted for inflation, it currently sits at number 17 with an estimated box office of $860 million. one step behind Avengers Endgame and one ahead of Jurassic Park and The Phantom Menace. So there you go. It was the number one movie in 1983, obviously, followed by Terms of Endearment, Flashdance, Trading Places, and War Games. Those are the top 5 that year.
Terms of Endearment.
Yeah, it was a big one.
What a feeling.
Mike.
He's a maniac.
Yeah. It got 4 Oscar nominations. Did not get any of them. It lost art direction to Fanny and Alexander. Remember that movie? Of course you don't. Neither do I.
Barely.
Sound effects, and score. It lost all those to The Right Stuff, which is fair enough for me.
Okay.
But it did win a special achievement award for visual effects for the Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett and those guys that have been doing this kind of work for years and years and years. A couple of others that I'm forgetting, obviously, but they got a special achievement award that year. And as recent as 2021, it was an entry to the National Film Registry, which is a big deal. So, and the legacy for Star Wars just kind of goes without saying. But so there you go. A lot of fun, guys.
It's a proper way to end a trilogy.
It was,
Yes.
And I guess we'll get to that more. So why don't we all just take a little turn to go through the grumpy meters? So, Aaron, you're the guest. You can go first. Just kind of walk us through.
Let me go first. I want to yield some time to Aaron because I want to hear more.
Okay.
More beef. For me, like I said, I'm not a big Star Wars fan. This is only the second time I ever saw it. Watching as a little kid, I think I liked it. This time I'm watching it more of a jaundiced eye, but it was still held up. It was good. Some of the special effects little dubious, but that's just because of its age. Soundtrack was fantastic. I love the way it had concurrent stories going at the same time. The editing, for many problems it must have had, the editing for me seemed great.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Disney re-edit, how they would maybe take a a digital media, maybe like have Palpatine. Wouldn't you like to see like an epilogue scene where he's getting rescued by the little blue guy or Bib Fortuna or somebody kind of like shows up in a little Imperial cruiser and picks him up as he's falling through the shaft?
I think you just wrote season 4 of The Mandalorian.
There you go. And but like I say, what really holds this movie for me was the father-son dynamic. I found myself not even interested in the space fight or the indoor fight. I'm watching the dynamic between Vader and Skywalker, and fantastic. And like I say, the Emperor's the perfect villain. Just having him there as the foils, egging them on, it was just great. I loved it. So this is a hard movie to say it's bad at all because it's just so well done, and like I say, it's fitting into a trilogy that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a great take, Mike. Thanks. All right, Aaron, your turn.
Okay. So you said this was released May of '83, so that would have made me 11 years old. And now,
how many Vans did you have in the closet?
No, I didn't love Empire. I still enjoyed it, collected all the action figures still, but my Star Wars mania relaxed a little bit, and maybe it was because that movie was a little darker, and I didn't want my Star Wars so bleak. I wanted more Yoda-like characters, and boy, would we get them. So when Jedi came out, I was back with the Rebel Alliance full force. I'll never forget seeing the action figures for the first time on vacation and being so excited. The toys looked amazing, and I couldn't wait to see the movie, which I did. I think I saw it twice at the theater. Now, Justin, you may remember where this played. I think I saw it at the Joliet Mall.
Yeah.
Sound right? Okay.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Jabba's palace, all the characters, saving Han Solo, destroying evil yet again. The father-son dynamic, which Mike mentioned, and the happy fireworks ending. But I got a little story related to Jedi because my love was somewhat hidden for this movie, even though I was getting all the toys. I got the Burger King glasses, all that good stuff, action figures. It kind of came out in a pivotal time during our youth. We were in that age when we're not quite kids anymore. We're not quite adults yet, but things are changing. And that was the summer before I entered into middle school, as we call it out here, junior high, so went from being like a dorky king of the hill 5th grader to a dorky underclass. Which is kind of nerve wracking.
Yeah.
And I still remember one of my older neighborhood friends making fun of Jedi and how dumb it looked, how stupid it was. And for whatever reason, that got to me. And I was I didn't want to be seen as uncool, you know. So while I still love the movie, you know, my Ewok shirt went into the drawer.
Oh,
my
yeah.
Jabba the Hutt notebook didn't get used. And why that guy bothered me, I'll never know. But I never forget that.
And on him,
he turned out to be a real jerk anyway. But you know, school was great. I met a great friend, and all was well again. A funny part of that story was, you know, I wouldn't use these Star Wars supplies that my mom got me. And my dad's like, hey, I'll use that. It's a notebook, right? I'll hang it up out in the garage underneath the rotary phone, and I'll write my numbers on there for my buddies. And every time I came home to my parents' house, it was there. And it hung in that garage for like 35 years. And until recently, and I took it down, I still have it. So
that's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I should have listened to the Emperor. Young fool. Only now at the end do you understand.
You understand, right? That's great.
So I loved it then, and watching it again, you know, last week, I still love it. But we'll get to the grumpy part, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so at some point, maybe Justin, you remember when George Lucas did the special edition VHS releases of these, and he went back and added new footage and new special effects. And some of these are okay, like the Sarlacc pit isn't. I mean, they're all very noticeable to me, and some are less annoying than others. But what you mentioned earlier about the size snoodles and the Max Rebo band.
Yeah. It just sounds funny saying out loud.
Max Rebo.
I'm not one to say that it took me out of the movie, but boy, did that just really take me out of the movie for a second. It's like they crowbarred this weird little, new wave number, and this effects that he added, to me, looked more dated than the original effects. Now,
yeah,
they really stick out. That and the ending that he tacked on with all the cities and some of the other things. So that's the one thing that knocks it down a little bit. I would love to see, the original released without those effects, but I don't think that's going to happen. So
and
it came out, I'd say 5-star when it came out, and now I'd say with the current version, that's 4.5. Some of those effects just really
that's fair enough.
throw me.
Yeah, that's a good take. Thank you, Aaron. That's good. I'm not going to really bring anything new to the table here that you guys haven't already said already, but when I saw it as a 12-year-old, it was perfect. It delivered everything,
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about context a lot on the show. I didn't need it. It was a cool story coming to an end to me. And I remember back then it was weird because I remember I was staying at a friend's house and her mom said, "Hey, do you want to go see Return of the Jedi with us?" I said, "Well, what's that?" There's a movie? Because back then, the PR machine wasn't the same way. There wasn't YouTube videos. There weren't trailers for trailers. You had to read the paper or something about movies coming out. There was no. So to be a Star Wars fan to that degree, for me, and still to not know that it was coming out was just, in hindsight, just seems impossible. But I saw it in the theater and I was completely there and everything was good. And I think, Aaron, what you talked about was interesting because, we saw the transitional age, right, from 12 to 13, we're about to become men, it's just that the kind of thing where, there's a point in your life, your dad becomes your father, right? It's you see your dad, he's not your hero anymore. He's kind of the villain a little bit. And I think, I think that story that Mike talked about hits home, especially, little boys, that you don't want to see faults in your father, but sometimes you do, and that's where I guess this movie kind of just shows that there's a unique relationship between fathers and sons, and it really speaks to, not that it doesn't have crossover to appeal to other demos, but I think it hits a little bit harder to boys at that age to see that their father can be that kind of thing. So as I watched it again last, for the show, I just realized how much this movie's been underappreciated, especially in light of the newer Star Wars movies that came out. When people would rank these things, obligatory, internet list of, top Star Wars movies ranked, this is always down at the bottom. And
really?
it bothers me a little bit because there's something about, I guess, back in the day, I would go nostalgia, Mike, look out.
Uh-oh.
All right. But movies carried more weight back then. It was a bigger deal, and this was, I just kept getting the impression that this was this was a big
It was
movie.
it was a cultural event.
It was a cultural
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But they had more cachet, it had more value, had more resonance as an old-timey movie thing. You know, something you'd see outside the Chinese theater, and there would be this big to-do about it. It had this epic scale, and it had a real ending to this trilogy. Like it felt like the end, even like from like, you know, a half hour in. This is the conclusion, and, you know, and there's no end credit scene where, you know, the Emperor's hand shoots up it or raises up in the screen, or there's, you know, you didn't have any gimmicky crap that, you know, everybody feels like compelled to do now. This was it. This is a movie, you know. And I just, you know, no gimmicky things like that. I just really appreciated the weight of this movie, and so I was 5 of 5 then. I'm a 5 of 5 now. I'm you know, unapologetic for my love of this series, and it's just how much it means to the subculture people that love these movies. These things are. I would encourage anybody that doesn't know what I'm really talking about. You want to be embarrassed? Just YouTube anything where you see, you know, Star Wars trailer reaction, just to see the way we, as in the Star Wars subculture, are brought to tears. Sometimes it's just, you know, there are thousands of videos where people watch these trailers and just are brought to tears because they're so emotionally overwhelmed by how much this means to them or whatever. But it's just a unique, you know, phenomenon. I think just a unique, you know, thing that's just to this series. It's just a neat little thing. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. So there you go.
Nice.
Well said.
Yeah. So enough of this pretentious horse crap, right? Let's get to the funny stuff. So I think all three of us kind of, the subtext of all of our kind of assessment of this movie was the father-son thing. So we thought for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal, we want to look at that. We want to explore that father-son element in other movies. So, you know, Luke has some serious daddy issues, and these are kind of overcome with the Vader's redemption. But Hollywood loves this trope, and so we thought we would look at our top 3 favorite father-son movies, good or bad. So, Aaron, why don't you go first?
Okay, I'm going to throw this one out there, see if you guys have seen this one. Shogun Assassin.
Okay. No.
All right. I'll shoot
Bring
a head
it
down
up.
on my list, darn it.
Okay. So what we have here.
Is that Robin Williams?
So this was
It's a Touchstone Pictures, Justin.
Yeah.
it's a TriStar. This is a movie that was they took 2 or 3 different samurai movies and edited it down into one extremely violent and bloody film. It's based the plot is the father has a young son who he pushes around in a carriage, and along the way he kills about 500 other samurais, and it's blood spraying everywhere, and even the baby cart is fixed with weapons, so the baby might hit a button and a blade will come out and cut a guy's foot off.
I hate when that happens.
Something I caught with my dad back in the 80s. You know, it was probably on, like, you know, one of those cable channels we didn't pay for, like On TV or Spectrum or whatever they were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad and I just had a blast watching it. It was so over the top, violent and fun. So
Yeah.
Father and son.
That's a good one. All right, we're off to a good start. All right,
check
Mike,
that one out.
Mike, follow that.
All right. Mine's a little more mainstream, but it's Boys in the Hood, John Singleton movie. It's about Cuba Gooding, who has to live with his father in Compton, LA. You know, this is set when, you know, during the gang wars and everything. But Lawrence Fishburne plays the dad, Furious Styles, and he's the guy who kind of leads Cuba Gooding right and tells him not to get involved with the gangs, but don't mess with the cops. And, you know, he's a fantastic father figure in this movie as a single dad. And, you know, and of course, Cuba Gooding gets involved with, you know, Ice Cube and a couple other guys. And, but he, you know, he turns right because he goes to his dad, and his dad is, you know, his rock is kind of established in the movie as, the way that, you know, I forgot the character's name, but it's the way Cuba Gooding kind of is able to set himself straight and not be killed like some of his buddies are, you know, in the climax of the movie. Spoilers. But, great movie. So that would be my father and son movie.
That's a great pick. I was working on Usher at the theater when that movie premiered.
Oh yeah.
And we never got that far. We never made it that far to the
Never
movie.
had little problems in the movie theater.
There was an incident with some of the crowd, believe it or not.
Oh no.
All right, so that's a great one, Mike. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go even more mainstream and probably annoy both of you with this pick, but I'm going to go with The Godfather, the original Godfather.
Oh yeah.
I knew it was coming.
It was that's yeah. There was concern prior to the show that we were all going to be talking about the same movies, but my boys entrusted me that we could go forward. So,
oh yeah.
What I like here is people have done volumes and documentaries about how great this movie is, but at its core, I think the real power of this is the relationship between Brando and Pacino, and especially that he doesn't want Al Pacino to have anything to do with the family. He's a civilian. He's a war hero. The fact that the most emotional part in the movie is when Don Corleone learns that Pacino did the hit, kind of broke through and put himself in that world that he never wanted him to be part of, and just his emotional breakdown on that is just showed you that he never wanted that for his son, and he had kind of lost his others to that already, and just to have him in there, I think that one of my biggest takeaways is the way the relationship with his father in that movie. So that's going to be mine. So
awesome.
All right, so I'm going to leave you now because I know you're all busy.
Thank you, Don Corleone.
Yeah, and I hope your first child is a masculine child. All right, we're back around to you, Aaron. Your second pick.
Okay, let's see. Second pick. What am I going to go with here? Let's do. Yeah, it's like I want to be totally bleak for all these because I'm going through. I found a lot of these father and son movies were not the most upbeat.
They're not fun, are they? Yeah.
Feel good movies. So.
The Road. That's a good one. That's a feel good movie right there.
Oh yeah.
So another. But you know what? Let's go with this one. I'm going to go with East of Eden.
Yeah, that was on my list, but great. Yeah.
Oh, I took. Hey, I can
take it. Go with it. Roll with it, baby.
Okay,
it's all yours.
Not only father son, but mother son, brother son. That the whole family. Is.
Anybody to James Dean is. Yeah.
You're tearing me apart. Different movie, but you're tearing me apart.
Yeah.
But he's so played those characters so well. In dealing with all that, and what a lot he had to deal with, from the father, sort of the footloose father, preacher, and the mother who works as a prostitute, and the brother he's jealous of, and his girlfriend, and
it's really common theme still,
Yeah, East of Eden. Let's go with that one.
That's a great pick. Yeah. All right, Mike.
All right,
another tough one to follow.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go obscure Farrelly Brothers movie here. Outside Providence, not from 1999. Of course, it's set in Rhode Island, but it came to my mind because I just remember how Alec Baldwin, who plays the father in this movie, is actually does one of his best acting jobs, and he plays this dad who was. He tries to get over the death of his wife who commits suicide, and he plays poker, he drinks, and he has kind of a distant relationship with his sons because of it. And it's mainly focused on one of his sons who's trying to do the straight and narrow kind of path and stay away from his druggy, smoking little brother and his friends. And it's one of those kind of movies that has the Farrelly Brothers humor, but it also has a really touching relationship. And they finally kind of have a meeting of minds at the end where the son and the father have this great conversation about, Alec Baldwin's like, well, maybe it was me that helped, And it's like both characters come to terms at the end, and it's a great resolution. And like I say, it's one of those movies. It's a little sleeper kind of movie, but I recommend it just because of its dark, kind of not dark humor, but it's well done father-son dynamic too.
That's a great one, Mike.
Okay. Outside Providence. I got to check that out.
Yeah, it's a great one. All right, well, I'm going to go even more commercial and bother you guys even more with this one. But Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So we talked about Harrison Ford and his unique characterization of his characters and limited crossover for that. But this movie, he was second fiddle to Sean Connery in all the best ways, and did a couple things. Sean Connery is Sean Connery. He's always going to be cool, but he even with his his character flaws and his Jar Jar Binks like attitude, falling into trouble and getting he's the perfect foil for this rugged archaeologist hero guy. The dynamic.
Misa named the dog in the end.
but he was always just kind of screwing up and always ended up like doing the right thing, with the comic relief yet still kind of real. But the relationship they have, it kind of flushes out. The personalities kind of blend together. You can kind of see how Indiana Jones was built and formed, and what the environment he came from, and explains a lot of his character traits, and just this wonderful adventure against the Nazis. And it's just a fun movie. And there's a scene in here where even the grizzled old guy Jones, it's swashbuckling, whip throwing guy, when his father says "Junior," and he goes, "Yes, sir." It's just that that dynamic between the father. You never lose that, And I just thought that was a really, really great story, driven by that father and son dynamic. So that's my second one, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, so we're gonna go around to our last pick. Maybe if you want to throw in your last one there, and maybe one or two smaller honorable mentions. So
yeah, I got a few here. So for the last one, do we go? I feel like I have to almost go more upbeat and commercial, because there's some bleak stuff on this list. So I'm going to finish off with a more commercial movie, and I'm going to go with The Lion King.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to tie it back into Star Wars.
Vader in the Serengeti.
Vader turns up again. So just a great movie. Now this is one that I did not see until probably fairly recently, and my wife introduced me to it, and our son, and it was something that she would sing the songs from the movie to him when he was a baby, and so I grew to love it, and we watch it fairly often together, and just a great father and son story. So that's number 3. And honorable mentions. Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear some bleak stuff.
Okay, here we go. Father-son movies. This one, I don't know if it's father and son. I mean, it is in a way, but let's throw it out there. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I thought you wanted to go bleak. That was wonderful.
That's great. Now here's a real bleak one. This one I didn't say, but I was At Close Range.
Oh yeah. Well, Christopher Walken, right? Sean Penn.
Yeah. Now that's a father-son movie you don't want to watch. If you want a feel-good movie. So that one's pretty rough. Onward. You guys seen Onward, animated movie?
No,
that's a great another father-son movie. The father dies, and the boys use a magic spell to try and bring him back, but only part of him comes back, his legs.
Okay, now it's ringing a bell.
Yeah, it's very good. A couple of those were Life is Beautiful and Bicycle Thieves.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah. Great picks. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
Sure.
Bring it home.
I tried to think of a movie that had kind of a parallel to Return of the Jedi and the Star Wars trilogy, and it was Wall Street, of all things, from 1987.
Oh, yeah.
You have Charlie Sheen playing, this hotshot character is trying to get, big on the stock market, and he's hired by Gordon Gekko, played by Michael Douglas, who's this really oily stockbroker. And he takes a liking to Charlie Sheen because Charlie Sheen has his dad working for a big airline company, and he uses basically the plot of the movie is Charlie Sheen's used to find out information from that the dad, who's actually played by Charlie Sheen's real father, Martin Sheen. And there's a lot of intricacies and it's about the plot, but long and short of it is, Charlie Sheen finds out that, wow, I shouldn't be doing this. I feel really bad. I can't believe, my idol, Michael Douglas here, is trying to take over this company my dad owns. And at the end of it all, has this talk with dad. And, the best scene in the movie is where the dad drives him to the courthouse and says, you've done some dirty dealings. He has to turn himself in. And I think it's a great moment at the end with the father's able to, wield enough power to convince his son to turn himself in at the very end. And it's almost like a, reverse And Gordon Gekko gets his comeuppance just like the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. So it's one of those kind of a bad guy tries to involve himself between a father and son and ends up getting, the short end of the stick and proper ending to a movie.
And he gets to hang out with Shia LaBeouf later in a sequel. So talk about comeuppance.
Again, a sequel that didn't need to be made.
Yeah.
It's just like it should have ended up with the scene on the courthouse steps,
Cash grab. Yeah. All right.
Of course.
That's a good one, Mike.
Oh, wait. And my honorable mention is Braveheart. The way Edward I Longshanks treats his, his effeminate son is a tragedy.
Yeah.
So say no more. There you go.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right. Well, I'm torn with like you guys. I have a couple that I want to say, and then a couple that trend the other. So I'm just going to go with my original pick, which is Field of Dreams. Which is I'm going to go briefly because I'm too romantic about baseball and the subject and all, just to get the words out without breaking down. But regardless of how I feel about Kevin Costner, this movie just kind of captures everything about what I think is thematically the best part of all of us. That he tears up his cornfield to build a baseball park, and it's populated by the spirits of those baseball players from the past. That alone just had me. But to put in the subtext that it brings back his father at the end to play catch, come on, how could you not?
That's a tearjerker.
So again, just saying the words out loud just kind of get me going already. So I'm just going to shut up. But it's just
James Earl Jones
again. Yeah, that's what I felt. But that speech he gives about baseball, it's just fantastic. And I'm not going to, I know it by heart, but I'm not going to do it to embarrass myself. But it's just a perfect one. So, but I think what are more perfect are some other films that we didn't talk about. One of my personal favorites is a movie called October Sky, which is a true life documentary about Homer Hickam, who grew up in the coal mines of West Virginia. It was like a lot of my family did, and he went on to become a rocket scientist. Billy Elliot, which we talked about before, a great little art house movie about a kid, I think, in Manchester that grew up as a ballet dancer. He had an interesting relationship with his mining father in that town. But I think the biggest one that I'm leaving off here is Over the Top. Yes.
Of course.
The Sylvester Stallone epic, based on a true story.
When the kid puts his hat on backwards, I just
backwards.
Like, oh my gosh!
Go ahead, Mike. Do it.
Well, we'll talk about that scene where Lincoln Hawk pulls over Big Bull Hurley's arm, and I cried more there than I did for Field of Dreams, but just a great movie. So
the only movie I ever walked out of.
Okay, I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
I guess it was over the top, huh?
Yeah. So I guess we've hit the bottom, guys. We've embarrassed ourselves enough. So let's kind of wrap it up. So, Aaron, we want to thank you for joining us again. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, guys. It's so much fun.
Obviously, Aaron will be joining us for several more shows this season, but we encourage everybody to check out his webpage, which we'll put the link to in our description.
Check me out on Instagram.
Yeah, Aaron is killing it this year on the May Vinyl Challenge. Check out some of his reels. He focused today a band called the Sonics, which Aaron, I saw. There you go. You can't see this, but on the screen he's showing his Return of the Jedi soundtrack on vinyl.
Oh, wow.
He focused the band the Sonics today, which I saw here in Charlotte about a year and a half ago.
You did?
Yeah, and they crushed it. Even at their older age, they came out in their suits and their ties and their black sunglasses and played a killer set. And I actually grabbed the set list on that one, actually. So great band.
So cool.
But while you're there, also check out Aaron's online store. That's designago.threadless.com. He's got some amazing artwork. You can get prints and shirts and other things like that. So check out his webpage. Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right, so for those of you that are still here, remember to tell your friends about our show. We're currently featured on all the podcasting platforms. You can check out information about our show specifically on Grumpy Nostalgia on Instagram. And if you feel compelled to send us an email challenging our observations, we're happy to respond to show you how you're wrong. But you can reach us at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. All right, so that's going to kind of wrap it up, guys. Mike, anything else you want to say before we head out?
Use your aggressive feelings, boy.
That's right. Many Bothans died to bring us this podcast. So for Mike and Aaron, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
See ya.